Okay, welcome back. So I want to talk about amplitude now, and I left this up here so it'd be easier to talk about instead of having to rewrite everything. But amplitude is the vertical distance, okay? So vertical distance from the center, from 0 to the height of the graph. So typically, again, if we talk about the general cosine function here, cosine, the range of cosine and sine, so cosine x and sine x, both have a range of 1 to -1, okay? So when we look at the range, we look at the closed interval from -1 to +1, okay? And again, notice that for the cosine function, a, right, the coefficient here, a is 1, okay? So the amplitude of this function is related to a, or it is a, okay? So the amplitude is given by this distance, and this distance is a, okay? So a is the amplitude. Okay, now, what about the midline? Okay, well, the midline is the vertical height, okay, from the midline is A. Okay, and the midline here is at 0. Okay, so this is the midline, and the vertical height from the midline, the maximum vertical limit is A, or the absolute value of A, I should say. Okay, the vertical height from the midline is absolute value A, okay? And so that's going to be 1/2 of the maximum versus the minimum, right? So for example, if we take the maximum and the minimum, right, in this case it's -1, 1. So if we take the maximum minus the minimum, that's going to be 2, right? So 1 minus -1 is 2, divided by 2. So we take 1/2 of that, and that's going to give us the amplitude, okay, which is 1 in this case. And so now what affects the amplitude? Well, A does, right? A is the amplitude. So if A is 1, then we just have a regular cosine function or a sine function. In fact, if A is 1 and B is 1 and C and D are 0, then we have a regular cosine x and sine x. Okay? But what if B is 1, C and D are 0, and let's say A is bigger than 1? Well, then that's a vertical stretch. So what happens is if A is 2, then guess what? The amplitude is now 2. Which means instead of the range being from 1 to -1, it is now -2 to 2. Okay? And what if A is less than 1? What if it's 1/2? Well, now that's a vertical compression, which means it's now compressing it in the vertical direction. So if A is 1/2, that means the amplitude is now 1/2. Which means instead of going from 1 to -1, it's now going to go from -1/2 to a +1/2. Okay? And that's amplitude. Again, nothing really special or out of the ordinary, and it should be really intuitive from our study of transformations. Okay, have a great day. We'll start doing examples starting with the next video. Take care.